Hi everyone, and welcome to Apply First webinar. I'm Oli Budgen, and I work in the graduate recruitment team here at Teach First. Now, the reason you're joining us, whether it be live or on YouTube, is that you want to find out more about Teach First, the leadership development program, and also the application process as well. And by the end of this webinar, you're going to have much more of an understanding about why Teach First exists, the leadership development program, what you can do about it, most importantly, and finally, we're going to be giving you some hints and tips and general advice to help you submit as strong an application as possible. Now you'll notice to my side, I'm joined by three lovely people. Now they're not here just to look at you, they're actually going to be joining us and answering questions posed by you. We're actually joined by two ambassadors, Adrian and Emmanuel, and Vicky, who's actually a participant, who's kindly taken time out of her well-deserved summer break to join us this evening. They're going to be answering questions posed by you. So I'm going to start by giving a bit of a lowdown why Teach First exists. Some of you may have not a lot of knowledge of Teach First, and that's fine. Essentially, Teach First is an education charity, and we believe quite fundamentally that every child should be entitled to a fantastic education. Currently in the UK, the best way to predict how well a child does is to look at how much their parents earn. And that link between wealth and educational success is actually stronger here in the UK than almost anywhere else in the developed world. And that's really shocking. I remember when I heard that, I was really shocked by that as well. There are currently in the UK, only 20% of free school meal students will get a place at university. And that's quite shocking. But when you compare that with 86% of their wealthy peers who attend independent school, it really highlights how unequal that education inequality gap really is. And what that shows us is that there's a real problem, and our education system is failing those pupils from low socioeconomic backgrounds by not ensuring that they have access to the best opportunities and chances that of their wealthier peers who attend independent schools. So Teach First was set up for that very reason, to solve that problem. The Teach First vision is that no child's educational success should be limited by their socioeconomic background. And Teach First was founded about 13 years ago to inspire and develop those inspirational leaders to make a change in the trajectory of those young people who need it most. We know this change starts with the great teaching and leadership of fantastic teachers as well. And research has shown that great teaching and leadership is the best way to fix the problem of education inequality, improving life chances and educational outcome of young people. And we've made huge strides in achieving this. So in the 13 years we've been around, we're now the largest graduate recruiter in the UK, and to date we've placed 8,000 nearly participants like Adrian, like Vicky and like Emmanuel in schools across England and Wales. We've then gone on to make a difference in the lives of nearly 1 million people, which is a phenomenal achievement as well. And that's where you come in. So if this is something you're listening to, this is something you feel really passionate about, then what you can do about it is you can apply for Teach First Leadership Development. What I want to do now is I want to give you a bit more of an understanding about what that road map looks like, what the Leadership Development Program involves. Okay. So it all starts with the Leadership Development Program, the Leadership Development Program, so the Summer Institute. So Summer Institute is a 6-week intensive residential training, during which you'll be equipped with all the skills and experience that you need to make an impact in the classroom. And then you start teaching in a school. So that's real responsibility from day one. You're earning a salary, and you're working towards your fully funded PGC qualification. Then once you finish that first year, you then have the option of taking advantage of summer projects. Now, summer projects are a varied selection of career development opportunities put forward by our corporate partners. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but Teach First is essentially supported by organisations spanning across finance, law, technology, charity and policy sectors. They've got a wide range of opportunities available for you to get involved with. I know we've got two ambassadors here that have taken advantage of those opportunities, and they'll be able to share their experiences about that later. You then return after some holidays for your second year, and you'll then have the option of taking advantage of a master's qualification. So it's a part-time, part-funded master's qualification, which you can study for alongside your teaching commitments as well. Then once you've completed the 2 years, you then become part of our ambassador network. So once you complete the program, you become an ambassador, and you'll always remain part of our community. And our ambassadors go on to do a wide range of jobs after the program as well. And as you can see, about 2/3 of our ambassadors will remain in the classroom. And of those, we've had 14 head teachers, and about a third of those have moved into senior leadership positions, of the third of the 2/3 are staying in the classroom. We've also had 36 social enterprises set up. I know Emmanuel will be talking a bit later. He's actually pioneering one of those social enterprises at the moment. We're going to talk a bit about that. Of the third that move into new careers, you'll be able to see that we have a wide range of platinums, graduate recruitment partners, and other supporters who have a really established track record of supporting and hiring our ambassadors as well. So that's a bit about what the 2 years look like. It's all good and well me talking about it, but I think the best thing to do is actually hear from people that have listened, that have experienced that as well. So this is the point where our ambassadors come in. So thank you very much for joining us. Adrian, it would be really great if you could start by explaining your background. Now, Adrian is actually, you studied at a bachelor's and master's at Oxford before being a 2010 ambassador. So you taught maths in North London, and you now work at Goldman Sachs as well. So do you want to talk to us a bit about the motivations for applying for Teach First, how you found it, and what you're doing afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I'm Adrian, and the main reason why I chose to do the Teach First program was really that I was captivated by the Teach First vision, that no child's educational success should be determined by their socioeconomic background. And I remember going to a recruitment fair at university, and I remember hearing some of the statistics that you heard earlier. And I was really shocked, actually, that Britain, it turns out, isn't as fair as I thought it was, isn't a free and fair society, and that I'd sort of always just assumed that it was. And I found Teach First was a very practical way that I could try to do something to help address that problem. I guess there are a couple of other reasons as well. I really wanted to work with the sort of people that you work with on Teach First are people who are really passionate about what they do, they care about and their jobs, they care about making the world a better place. And I guess also wanted a job which would develop skills, and would also be a real challenge. Teach First was definitely a challenge for me. I'm sure these guys would say it was for them as well. To give you some sort of ideas to the school that I was in. So in my first couple of weeks, I was teaching in a classroom which was on the 4th floor in the building, and I took a student outside to tell them off. And when I came back into the classroom, they'd taken all of the boxes of books which were lined up on the window, and they'd thrown them out the window. So that was quite a sort of interesting first week. I remember coming back after the summer holidays in 2011, and I don't know if anybody was in London in the summer of 2011, but that was the summer when the London riots happened. And I remember a number of my year 10s came back in, and they had some police anklets around their ankles, and throughout the rest of the year going in and out of various juvenile detention centres and all the rest of it. So real challenges. Just before I left as well, 2 of the students stole one of the teachers' cars, 2 of the sixth formers, and decided to drive around Camden for a couple of hours. So it definitely has its interesting moments. That said, it has been extremely rewarding working with young people and working in the school. I did the 2-year program. I really enjoyed it. I carried on for a 3rd year. I wanted to, but at the end of my 2nd year, I decided to do one of the Teach First summer projects. So I did an internship with Accenture, and then at the end of my 3rd year, I did an internship with Goldman Sachs. And I was offered jobs by both of those companies, and it seemed like a good opportunity to try something different. So I now work as an equity trader at Goldman Sachs. I've done that for 2 years now, but I still remained engaged with the Teach First vision, and that's one thing that's great about the Platinum sponsors, is that they're very keen for you to remain engaged. So at the moment I'm currently a governor of a secondary school, and I tutor a student once a week in GCSE maths with the Access project. So I've really enjoyed being able to kind of get the best of both worlds now.
Okay, brilliant. Vicky, you're a 2014 participant,
Yep.
so you're halfway through your journey on the Leadership Development Programme.
Yep.
And you're teaching primary at a school in Essex as well. Do you want to talk to us a bit about your background and why you applied as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually came to the Leadership Development Programme a little bit later on in life. So I'd worked for 6 years before I started the programme. I'd worked, I've done a number of different roles within higher education. I actually started that with a year of working as a student union officer, where I actually campaigned against the rise in tuition fees. And then obviously throughout my time working in higher education, the fees were raised again. And it was interesting to see the impact that that had on the students that were being recruited to my university, particularly thinking about the level of debt that these students were going to be accruing across 3 or 4 year programmes. And it was about that time that I found out about Teach First, and it was something that I started to become quite passionate about, as you were talking about earlier, Oli. You know, the children that are coming from the most deprived backgrounds, in my opinion, are going to be really put off about going to university through the cost of those fees, and also through a lack of knowledge and understanding of the help that was available to support them financially through that. And so that was about the time that I applied to the programme. Now, interestingly, I was then offered a place teaching primary, as you said, rather than secondary. But actually, I found across the last year that it's still been a fantastic platform for me to talk to children at quite an early age still about their aspirations and where they want to head to. So yeah, it's been a challenging first year. But I'm here, I've made it, and I'm obviously going to be staying on to do my second year. So as you said, I've taught Year 6 the past year, and I'm going to be staying on within my school as Year 6 lead, and I'm also taking on the responsibility of science lead as well. So that's kind of going to be me. In a week's time, I'm going to be back in the classroom talking to children about the new initiatives that I'm setting up for them, and obviously being there as Year 6 lead as well.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Enjoy your last few days of holiday before you start again.
Yeah, I'm going to be relaxed, definitely.
And Emmanuel, now finally, so Emmanuel is a 2011 ambassador.
Yeah.
So Emmanuel taught English in the West Midlands, and is now founder of Caring the Classroom, which is one of those social enterprises that we mentioned earlier. So do you want to talk a bit about that, about how you found the program as well?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Leadership Development Programme. It was a really challenging experience, but something that I'm really glad that I did. I suppose I had quite personal reasons for joining the Leadership Development Programme. I grew up in East London, quite a poor community. My school was one in challenging circumstances. It was also actually one of the first Teach First schools in the entire country, and my head teacher was a sort of founding member of the committee that put Teach First together eventually. My school at one point was in the bottom 4% of GCSE results in the country, but in the time that I was there, I saw the amazing impact that teachers there had on me, and also had on other pupils as well. And I was quite lucky that allowed me to do things that I wouldn't otherwise have had access to the opportunity to do. It's continued when I left school and went on to do my A-levels at Further Education College. I had an incredible teacher who sat me down and told me in no uncertain terms that I was applying to university, and then helped me to put my application together. And it's because of individuals like him that I am able to sit in this webinar and talk about how amazing the Leadership Development Programme is. I didn't do Teach First immediately after university. Similarly, I was an officer in my student union for 2 years. I did some policy work afterwards. I worked for a charity. I did some freelance journalism, and at the same time I applied for the Leadership Development Programme, was really happy to get on, and then went up and taught English in the West Midlands for 3 years in the end. It was an amazing period of time. I also did a summer project as well. I was at Google for 3 weeks, and it was a great opportunity to take in some amazing skills. There was the potential of going in and working there full-time afterwards, but I decided that I was really enjoying what I was doing in the classroom. I was making a real impact on my pupils, and decided to stay there to continue doing that for a third year, which is something that I'm really glad that I did. Sort of coming on to being an ambassador of the Leadership Development Programme, one thing that I've always been quite passionate about is children who grow up in local authority care. Because I spent the first few years of my life in care, and I had amazing foster parents, and they gave me amazing opportunities as well. And what Teach First did is it gave me the opportunity to take that passion combined with the skills that I learned from the Leadership Development Programme and put those together. And so I work with a team of individuals who all share my passion of improving the outcomes of children who grow up in care. And just to touch on a couple of statistics, only 15% of children who grow up in care get 5A started at GCSE. And only 6% of them will have the opportunity to go on and study in higher education, which I think is an absolute travesty. So we are working as a group to look at what we can do in education to radically change the outcomes of those children. And I would never have that opportunity had I not joined the Leadership Development Programme.
I'd like to start with you, Vicky, but ask you a question. We've had some questions coming in, and please do submit questions as you think of them in the chat bar on the side as well. The first question that we've had submitted, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask you, Vicky, because you're in the middle of it, you just finished your first year, and you're about to start your second. So I want to know, so how is the LDP differing from what you expected? Is it what you expected?
I think to a large extent, yes. I think one thing that I wasn't expecting was the emotional investment. I think, and that's really hard to communicate before you start the programme anyway. I think in terms of what I knew and what I understood about the programme, it's 2 years, this is the support you get, all of those boxes are kind of ticked. I think what I didn't fully anticipate beforehand was how emotionally invested you become in the children that you teach. And it may be different secondary, I don't know, but I had 28 children in my class, and that's kind of the beauty of being a primary school teacher, is that's who you're with all day, and you understand who they are, the challenges that they face, some of the really difficult circumstances that they are growing up in, and that emotional investment was quite hard, I think, to kind of get to grips with. It became easier over the year, kind of dealing with that. But yeah, I guess that was one thing that I wasn't necessarily anticipating.
And so is there things you will take from that into your second year?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because actually, that's a big part of why you get up in the morning and why you want to go in and do the job in the first place, is because of the children, and you want to have that impact, and you want to do your bit to change. And when you hear that from Emmanuel, and actually, that's why I did the programme in the first place. And so it's about just kind of balancing that out with, yes, I am emotionally involved, but actually this is what I can do to help these children, and this is kind of practically what I can do. And then just learning to appreciate, actually, that's as far as my job goes. And yeah, just getting used to that again.
That's absolutely true. I think we talk about a bit about development and sort of learning things from your first year as well. I'd like to ask you, Adrian, so another question we've had is, how did the LDP change you, or how did it develop you? I suppose one might think, looking at your career, going from teaching into working at Goldman Sachs in the finance sector, that's quite a different, it's quite a change. So how did you find it? What have you taken from the LDP into your career at the moment?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I would say there were two things that really developed that helped me transition into that career. First thing that I got from the LDP was just the organisation, just in terms of if you're planning, 5 lessons a day, you're marking all the homework, you're writing schemes of work. It's a very, very different environment to a university environment, and getting those key organisational skills was really key. And I think I'd say the second thing that I got from the programme was this idea around leadership and being proactive and taking the initiative. So in my second year on the programme, I was, with a colleague, started the Duke of Edinburgh programme at my school, and that resulted us in taking 40 students away into the countryside to do their expeditions in a couple of different places in the UK. And kind of managing that team of, you know, say 8 different teachers plus the 40 students plus the charity sponsors who sponsored the school. It was a big leadership step for me, and I'd definitely say that both of those have been very helpful for me in my career afterwards.
Okay, great. And Emmanuel, similarly, you've gone from working in the classroom, you now are the founder of Care in the Classroom, which is a social enterprise. Like, how have you? That's again, in education, it's still quite a change. How have you sort of progressed from the LPP to moving back? How's that helped you?
I think in a number of ways. I think a lot of ambassadors will also speak to the fact that the ambassador community is an amazing network of people to have access to. And one of the things that I've been able to do with Care in the Classroom is speak to the ambassador department at Teach First, as well as just other people in the ambassador community, writing the ambassador magazine, and people getting in contact with me. So we've been able to meet with the Department of Education through that ambassador community and work with charities to develop what we're trying to do, work with departments in academic institutions, all through the ambassador network, the ambassador community, which is an amazing thing to have. I think on a personal level, I think, just like as Adrian was saying, the skills that you develop in terms of organising things, knowing how to formulate things, how to think about things, how to approach a problem in a particular way. I think those were all things that I took immediately from the leadership development program. I was able to implement, trying to push this forward.
Okay. It's a challenging program. We've read one question that's coming in saying that the other is really hard. I speak with lots of ambassadors, I speak with lots of participants as well, who all say, yes, it's a really challenging program. How did you find the challenge? How did you find the coach with the challenge? So, yeah, so there's no one in particular.
There weren't actually any challenges. No. It's a really, really challenging experience. You get up quite early. You have to go to an institution and engage 24 to 30 kids for most of the day. And then after that, you have to plan more engaging activities for them to do the following day. Check that they're actually making that progress. And you, in many ways, have to lead yourself as well. You're doing your own reflection. You're being supported by an amazing group of mentors and other individuals. But in many ways, it's up to you to make sure that those pupils are actually learning and developing as well. So it's a really, really challenging experience. I say there are few things that you can do leaving university that are going to give you the same level of responsibility and the same challenge that you're going to get in the leadership development program. But I would say that if you're somebody who likes a challenge, who relishes a challenge, who develops as a result of being challenged, then it's absolutely the right thing to do. And I literally cannot think of anything better to do immediately afterwards. I think in terms of the speed at which I developed, the opportunities that I had to do things, the expectation of you to step up to the mark when necessary, there are very few things that you can do after university, or even just in other jobs and other roles so soon after graduating as the leadership development programs. That's my personal thoughts and things.
Definitely, and I think obviously having just finished the first year, I think lots of people that kind of finish the first year, it is a case of just kind of keeping going, and at times that challenge can feel quite overwhelming. That definitely kind of in that first term, it was, actually I had a great job, and it was a job that I knew what I was doing, and I'd given all of that up to do this, and I'm really thrown in at the deep end. But actually, you, as Manuel said, you learn so much so quickly, and actually you've improved at a rate of knots. That actually after Christmas it was a bit easier. After February half term it was a bit easier. After Easter again it was a bit. And I think that's kind of part of the journey, is that first term you just keep going, you just keep going, and then after that you just improve, and that you kind of then start to. That was the point for me anyway, that I started to relish the challenge.
Sure.
And feel less kind of overwhelmed by it.
So okay.
I think on that as well, you mentioned the network earlier, being a good sport after the program. For me, the network was so fun, key to me getting through the program, just in terms of the support that you provide each other within the school. So I think most of the schools will have at least 2 or 3 Teach First people in your year when you start, and just being able to go to somebody who you know is probably going through exactly the same experiences as you, and just chat it out, and you know, that was really great, I thought.
I remember, and this is something that always comes back to me whenever someone talks about the support network you have during the programme, is once I had a really awful observation with a class group of Year 10 classes. It actually went so badly that the teacher who was observing me stopped me 5 minutes after the beginning of the lesson and said, I can't watch this anymore, and made me stand at the back of the room and watch the lesson. Now, that sounds awful. It's fine. Later on, he rated me as an outstanding teacher, and absolutely fine. But at this point, I just felt so awful, and I remember going home, and it was raining as well. I think it was actually sleet. I just crawled into bed and just put my covers over myself and was like, what on earth is going on? And then I remember my flatmate coming in and saying, oh, come on, mate, have a cup of tea. Have a cup of tea. And I went into the living room, and there were 7 of my fellow Teach Firsters who had all just come round, who heard I was having an awful day. My flatmate got them round. And then we just sat around for a moment, sort of just sharing how difficult the experience was, and also funny stories as well. And I just thought I've never had that feeling before of essentially just being looked after by other people who are around you. I think it's a real testament to the programme. I think it's why our participants do so well. It's that amazing support network that you have. People going through exactly the same things who are there to look after you then when things aren't necessarily going so well, and also celebrate when they are.
Everyone wants you to succeed. Like whoever you come across, like whether it's other participants, people in school, people at uni, like whoever it is, everybody wants you to do well. Like, and that's the beauty of that network.
I've got really kind of specific questions that relates to this really well. Actually, we've had Freya has asked a question, which is what would be your top tip for dealing with challenging behaviour? So we spoke about the challenge. It's the question that everyone asks. I'm asked constantly about it. You guys must be asked all the time as well. What is your top tip for dealing with challenging behaviour?
From my first year, number one, set routines. Like it sounds really, really dull, but actually, set routines and stick by them. Like children need to know where they stand, right? And I didn't understand in my first few weeks how essential this was. And from literally like, this is what you do when you walk in through the classroom in the morning. And actually for me, that was something that, yeah, we had some routines, like they knew they had to line up in silence. But I had a lot of tricky behaviour with my class. I had 8 naughty boys in my class. The girls were good as gold, but I had 8. And if you can imagine 8 naughty 10-year-olds, it can be like challenging. So set routines and talk to other people and talk to other people in your school. So for me, it was sitting down with my mentor, who was the deputy head of the school, who knew those children, and actually me saying, look, these are the boys that I'm struggling with, and we kind of put a plan in place, like tightened up my routines and drilled that into my children. And then actually working on, I then set up kind of different things. So I then had a boys club, and I didn't tell them it was a naughty boys club, but that's what it was. And actually it's about teaching them kind of lots of things around kind of like kind of social etiquette and how to kind of conduct themselves, how to deal with challenges themselves. So actually if they got something wrong, that's not the end of the world. And actually, like I did it a lot through playing games. So if you've lost this game, hey, that's not the end of the world. So actually, if you don't get that maths question right, it's not the end of the world either. You don't have to kind of kick off about that. So, yeah, working with other people when you are having those challenges. And if it helps anybody, I've now become quite well known for dealing with naughty boys. So I've got naughty boys in my class again the next year.
Shudder with fear.
I'm shuddering with fear.
Yeah, you should be.
You mentioned about support, and I think that's a really big part of it as well. You know, if you're starting a program, you want to know you're supported.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian, did you feel supported when you started the program?
I think there are so many different avenues of support that, yeah, it's fantastic. So the first and foremost, you've got the people around you, your other people in your cohort. In terms of the more formalised support that you provide in school, Teach First provide you with a mentor and a leadership development officer. Within school, you have 2. A mentor and a subject mentor and a sort of professional mentor, and yeah, I think at every stage of the journey, there's people who are there to guide you through and yeah, help you out.
Okay.
And I'd also just chip in on that as well. It's very much, I think, up to the participants to go and seek that support. So I think I felt when I started that it was kind of on my head to just go and teach, and that was the program that I had signed up for. And as I mentioned earlier, like particularly with behaviour and the naughty boys in my class, like that was the real challenge for me. And it wasn't until much later on in the term that I actually kind of went and owned up and went, this is actually a big issue, and I don't know how to kind of tackle that. And it was at that point that, you know, my mentor was like, why didn't you come and talk to me about this sooner? Why didn't you come and say, you know, we could have done, you know, other things, didn't have to get to this point. So yes, the support's there, but it's also about being honest with that support and saying, I need help with this. This is what I'm finding challenging.
Okay. We've had another question come in. So this one is, and you must have had this working in school with many other teachers who come from different backgrounds as well, different routes into teaching as well. The question we've had is, do you feel as prepared for teaching as those who've taken the more traditional PGC?
You know, in many ways, Teach First is an opportunity to get stuck in straight away. So it's quite different to other routes into teaching, like the PGCE, where you go back to university and spend quite a while thinking about things before going into the classroom. I had the opportunity to train with a number of people who were on the PGC or had just finished the PGC and were starting the classroom. And I would say that there isn't really a counter to standing in front of real pupils and really teaching them. And I think that's what Teach First gives you from day one. I think one of the things that we had that they didn't have is when they actually started teaching, the gloves sort of come off and everybody sort of takes a step back and says, okay, fine, we're ready. Whereas on the Leadership Development Programme, when you're actually teaching, that's when you're actually getting support from the 2 mentors inside of school, from the 2 tutors outside of school, from the Leadership Development Officer, and then potentially from a coach as well. And that's before we speak about the other Teach First participants who might be in your school as well, and the other teachers that you're relying on for support. So there's that. I think the other thing that people often don't realise is that some people think that Teach First is 6 weeks of training and then you go in and you do the Leadership Development Programme. That's not true at all. It's 2 years of continuous training. Actually, so much so that in the final term of teaching, you're still getting sessions from Teach First to help you develop as a teacher and develop as a leader as well. I think those expectations and all of that support there means that you know, you're supported along the way, even though you have huge challenges because you're going in straight away. There's a huge amount of support there.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question we've had from Katie, so thank you, Katie, for submitting your question. Adrian, you did Teach First, moved on to working at Goldman Sachs, and you also did some summer project whilst doing the programme with Accenture and Goldman Sachs as well. Did you always know that you wanted to move on? Did you always know that you wanted to leave the classroom?
That's a really good question. When I started the programme, I was actually really honest with myself, and I said, I'm going to do the programme, and I'm going to be very flexible. If I really enjoy it, I'm going to stay teaching. If after the 2 years I want to try something else, I'm going to try something else. After the 2 years, I had a fantastic time, and I wanted to carry on for a 3rd year. But I think for me, when I was offered the job to try something different, I felt like it would have been. I couldn't really turn it down, just because I wanted to try something different. So I didn't know for sure how it was going to turn out, but I had a great 3 years. I could well end up back in teaching.
That actually answered the question we've had from someone else who said, will you end up in the classroom again? Do you think you will?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
I suppose the fact is that you're still keeping these options open. You're still working as a school governor, you're still working as a tutor as well, tutoring support. So that's fantastic as well. Let me see. So we're having a few questions about the actual sort of the nuts and bolts of the programme as well. So I'm going to answer these myself because I feel like I can. So someone's asked, another person called Katie, thank you for submitting this, saying, do you return to the same school in your 2nd year? Yes, you do. The commitment for 2 years is at the same at one school, which means that you have that continuity and that relationship built with colleagues and with other stakeholders, with pupils as well. So yes, it would be for 2 years at the same school. Do you get a choice of area of the UK you get placed in? You get, in the application form, you get to state your preferences. There are 11 local areas around England and Wales that we place our participants in. You can state your preference in, starting from 1 all the way up to 11, of which local area you'd like to be placed in. And our team will do their best to accommodate that and place you in your preferred area. It's not something we can guarantee. Obviously, at the end of the day, we're an education charity, and the needs of the pupils do come paramount, and that they are our number one priority. At the same time, if you've got any reasons, any circumstances that you think that the team should know about to inform their placement of you in the school you get placed in, then it's really important that you put that in the application form, and our team will take that into account and do the best they can to support you. Because ultimately, we want happy teachers. Now we've got another question. The question is, and Vicky, you might be best placed to ask this. Actually, do you get a choice between upper and lower primary?
No, is my recollection. So when I applied to Teach First, I said that I didn't mind what I taught. I was put into primary, it was up to the school. It was the school that made that decision. Now my feeling is that actually you find out what school you get usually in advance of starting the summer institute. So I'd met and discussed with my school kind of via email before starting the programme, and they asked if I had any preference. At that point I had kind of limited experience of teaching in primary, and so I said that I didn't really mind. And so I think, yeah, largely it's kind of up to the school. What is great is that over the year you have a placement in an alternative key stage. So I actually went from teaching year 6 down to teaching year 1 for 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks of observing a year 1 teacher before then teaching that class for 2 weeks, kind of get that alternative experience. So although I have taught my class for which is year 6 from primary for the last year, I've also had a fantastic opportunity of kind of being and teaching year 1 children. So yeah, it's kind of given me that opportunity to know if I want to kind of stay in upper key stage 2 or if I want to go elsewhere. And you also get lots of opportunity to kind of observe across the school as well. So I've spent time kind of in those 2 groups, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of feel informed now about where I want to stay. And actually for me, year 6 was where I wanted to stay. So I'm quite pleased that I've been allowed by my school to stay in year 6 for a second year.
Okay, great. And we've got another question come in, so I'm trying to get through this as quickly as I can, so bear with me. We've got a question about summer projects. So Emmanuel, do you want to talk about this? So the question is, can you tell me a bit more about the summer projects, what it involves and how long it lasts?
Yeah, so some projects are 2 to 3 week internships. We have the opportunity to work with an organisation that Teach First has partnered with. They include everything from businesses like Google or Goldman Sachs, and some of them are with charities, some of them are international. So we have a big one called Volunteer Uganda. They're all over Europe, so they're really great opportunities to get some additional work experience that you can either use to take back into the classroom or take elsewhere. I might hold the record for some projects. I actually ended up doing 4 in the end. I did the first one at Google, so I helped them develop their strategy for working with higher education institutions, which is really cool. I then did one where I wrote a report on higher education access at Teach First. Then I did the challenge, which was working with 16 and 17-year-olds for 3 weeks and taking them on excursions and working with them to develop skills, which was incredible. Then I came back to Teach First and wrote another report on higher education access. So I did 4 in the end. And you can do them after you become, once you become an ambassador as well. You don't have to just do them in your first year as a participant.
Yeah, I think that's what often people think, is that you've just got that summer holidays between the first and second year program. That is often a place where it's most convenient to do that, because you've got 6 weeks or so to do that time. But actually, it's a resource and something you have available to you for the rest of your career, essentially, which is really good. Now I've got another question from Paul. So Paul has asked, Can you tell me how you felt on your first day? How did you approach and how did you handle it? So Vicky, this is the most recent for you, so you might have this most fresh in your memory. Do you want to tell how you felt?
I think probably equal measures terrified and excited. I think there's so much build up to kind of that first day, and it's everything that you're gearing towards, but also it's utterly terrifying because you have got, I have my class for a whole day, or if you're in secondary, you've got a series of classes in that first day, and it is scary, and I think that the best thing that you can do is be prepared for that day. So I met with my mentor in advance. I had team meeting with my Year 6 colleagues. I had my lessons kind of set out. I knew kind of exactly what I was doing, and I think that's kind of the key thing about that first day is be prepared, but also be ready for things to go wrong. So don't feel like you have to kind of sit very rigidly with, you know, this is what's going to happen, because actually you need to get to know your children and they need to get to know you. And finding out about your children and kind of what they're passionate about and what they're excited about is just absolutely key. So yeah, be ready for it, but also be ready to kind of be a bit fluid within that as well. I don't know if that helped.
I think preparation your first day is something that I just definitely agree with. I had a bit of a tragic first day, actually. So I paid really close attention to the shoot. I did everything I was told. So, my first day, I grew my beard over the summer to look slightly older. I'd got everything prepared. I did a prep talk to myself in the mirror before going there. And I did what I was told to do on the first day, which is go and say hello to the head teacher and introduce yourself. I would actually recommend against that, because the last thing he wants at 7:30 in the morning is somebody trying to speak to him when he's probably quite busy trying to set things up. So that didn't go so well. And then I went off to teach my first lesson. And it took me until about 9:10 to realise I was probably in the wrong place. And it turned out the timetable changed slightly and I was across the room. So I went across the hall, I went across the hall to find that my class was in total chaos, because they'd gone to the right room and I'd gone to the wrong room. Yeah. And I had to try and get them all settled down for a while. So I would say, be really, really careful, double check everything when you arrive. It might not be the same as what you've been told in the summer. Avoid trying to speak to your head teacher on the first day. It's probably got slightly more important things to do. And yeah, just make sure that you're smiling and that you approach your first day. You'll always remember that day, so try and make it as enjoyable as you possibly can.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to imagine what Vicky and Emmanuel looks like. It's struggling to imagine it, but
slightly different from how.
Yeah, I'll never know. So, a question going back to you specifically, Becky. People want to keep asking questions, because you're going through the program.
Yeah.
So, did you feel at a disadvantage or an advantage the fact that you come into teaching later in your career, whereas other people come maybe straight from university?
Yeah, I think my experience was very different to a lot of other people. So I think we had different challenges. So, I guess kind of like some of the more traditional things, like a lot of. I was a very well organised person when I started the programme, and I had learned that through having worked for 6 years prior to starting the programme. So I understood what good organisation looked like, what it felt like, and how important that was. And I think it was interesting to see other people that were younger than me kind of grappling with that and getting to terms with that. So in some ways, yes, I definitely felt at an advantage because I just worked. So some of those things, like I'd worked for 6 years, so I knew how to communicate with other colleagues effectively. I knew kind of how to mediate with other people. And yeah, I guess kind of a lot of that sort of thing was to my advantage. And definitely one thing that I struggled with that was to a disadvantage was actually I hadn't written an essay for 6 years. So lots of my kind of other people on the programme were kind of flying by with that stuff. Like they're just finished with going to the library and doing dissertations. And I actually didn't pass my first essay. So I had to go to additional academic sessions, and I had extra help from my tutor, and that improved, and I had no further issues with my kind of other essays that I had to do in the year. So yeah, I think it's just different advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, great. Now I've got another question which we've had, which is We've got one more question. In fact, we've got one more question, which is quite a nice question as well. So, Aidan, I'll start with you. What was the best thing you found about the LPGA? What was your favourite part?
My favourite moment was definitely taking 40 students away camping. For many of them, it was the first time they'd done anything like that. Having their mobile phones taken away from them for a couple of days was agony for them, but they were laughing about it in the train on the way home though. So yeah, it was just seeing the smiles on their faces on the way back. Not necessarily during, but on the way back.
So many people stories seem to be camping trips as well.
Yeah.
Program. So yeah, if you get an opportunity to go camping, school definitely take it up. What about you? What would you say your favourite part?
I think it's for me, it's always going to be about the children and building those relationships with children and really getting to know them. And I think for me, so I was top of primary, so my children all had to do SATs at the end of the year. And one of my favourite moments was being able to give them their results at the end of the year. And actually, this might not mean anything to other people that kind of haven't been teachers yet, but there were some of the children in my class that had made 5 sub-levels of progress when kind of the expectation is that you make at least 2. So for some of them, they've just rocketed through, kind of lots and lots of hard work on their behalf. And some of them were so overwhelmed by how well they'd done. I had tears and I had hugs, and like that day for me will always stay with me. Like it was worth every Sunday that I gave up, working in the holidays, like however late I worked at night, however many books I marked, like it was so worth it for that day and getting that achievement for those children.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. And finally, we've had a few questions coming about eligibility. So if you've got specific questions about eligibility, the best thing to do is speak to someone from our graduate recruitment team. So I'll be explaining later on in this webinar what you can do. Our graduate recruitment team will be in touch with you. They can talk through any questions you've got and answer those specific questions about eligibility you might have. That's all we've got time for in terms of questions. Thank you so much to our 3 speakers. I hope thank you so much. I hope you've really seen the 3 different perspectives and really fundamentally found that people come from many different areas. People have many different reasons for joining Teach First and the Leadership Development Programme and go on to many different things as well. And I hope that really kind of showed that point. This is something you can do. All 3 of you were sat probably in the same position that anyone watching this webinar might be, thinking and considering your career options, what you wanted your journey to be, what you wanted to get out of it, and you all weighed up that decision and made that decision as well. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I think it's been really interesting. And thank you for coming to support us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for watching us so far. Hopefully you've got a bit more of an idea about how the programme works, what the 2 years span, and heard some individual stories about what their experiences as well. What we're now going to do is we're going to talk you through the application process in a little bit more detail. Now, something at Teach First that we do is that we provide really tailored and personalised support in the application process. So I'm going to pass you across to my colleague Amy. Amy works in the graduate recruitment team with myself, and she's going to be able to give you some really strong hints, tips, and general advice to ensure that the application you submit is the strongest possible and allows you to articulate your skills in the best possible way. Have a pen and paper ready for you, so take some notes, and also if you have your application open, then have it open in front of you so you can see it and make the most sense possible. But over to you, Amy.
Hi everyone, my name's Amy. Thanks very much for the introduction, Ollie. I work on the graduate recruitment team, and my role was to support people like yourselves with the application form and make you feel really confident in what you're putting on there. I've seen the questions coming through, and there's been quite a few about how can I make a really successful application form, how can I make sure I get through to the assessment centre. So hopefully you'll feel really confident after this workshop. Also, there are people on hand to support you, as Ollie mentioned. Our admissions graduate recruitment team are there to answer any questions that you have about the application form, and I definitely suggest speaking to them on a sort of one-on-one basis. Okay, so we'll just get cracking. So moving forward, just talking about the application structure. So pre-application is where you're at the moment if you haven't opened an application form. So you may have met a graduate recruitment officer on campus, you may have come along to one of our events, you may have just registered on the application form. So that's just the stage that you're at the moment. And then we move swiftly on to the online application form, which hopefully quite a few of you have opened, managed to have a read through. So with our application form, it's sort of structured with your academics, and then you have different competencies that you have to show. And also, as Oli mentioned, you can rate your preferences for local area and also preferences for early years, primary or secondary. So that's just a little bit of an overview before going into that in more detail today. The assessment centre day is broken into 3 different parts. So you find out whether you've been successful at application stage within about 10 working days, and then you'll get your assessment centre date. Those are all in London. They're split into a competency-based interview, a group assessment, and you teach a 7-minute lesson. So again, we're measuring those competencies. You get support at every stage of the application form, assessment centre, all the way to Summit Institute, and then again, support at Summit Institute as well. Okay, you find out within a week whether you've been successful at assessment centre, and that's when you get your offer or conditional offer. So that depends on a few different aspects. So you need to do your QTS skills test, which are a requirement of the government. So those are in literacy and numeracy, so we require you to do those and pass those. We also ask you to do a curriculum knowledge assessment, something Teach First asks you to do to make you feel really prepared in your subject and get you looking at the curriculum. And we also look at your references. They go to, the CKA, the curriculum knowledge assessment, goes to a tutor to be marked. That comes back, can take a little while, but once that's back and everything else has been passed, you're then enrolled onto the programme and you have a place on our programme, which is really, really exciting. And of course, the next stage after that will be Summit Institute, which is 6 weeks in the summer, the end of June to the beginning of August, where you get all your training. So you learn how to teach your subject, behaviour management. I know a few people are concerned about that, so you learn those different techniques to prepare you for going into the classroom in September. Okay, so if we just move on to the actual application form itself, we look for 8 different competencies in general at Teach First, and you can see all of the different breakdowns and our definitions of these on our website. The 4 that are measured on the application form are the top 4, so knowledge, problem solving, humility, respect and empathy, and leadership. So we'll be talking through those in a little bit more detail. So I definitely say to have a good read through those, so that you are familiar with our definitions, so that when you're thinking of your examples, you know what base we're coming from. The one really good tip I think about these competencies is usually when you apply for a job, you make your application relevant to the job that you're going to do. But with Teach First, it's a little bit different. Each of these competencies make up a really effective and impactful teacher. So you want to make sure that your examples are the best example that you have for each of these competencies. So you can use examples from anything. It doesn't have to be related to children or teaching necessarily. Whatever you feel like is a great example for that particular competency. Okay, so moving forward, the first competency is knowledge. So as with any application form, you want to make sure that you really research the job that you're applying for and the organisation or company that you're applying for. So the first thing I'd say with this is make sure you've had a good read through all of the different tabs on our website. You really understand how the programme works, and you've been through like our FAQ part of our website, so you've had any questions that you might have answered. So it's a really good base for everything else, so have a good read through. So what we're looking for a clear understanding and knowledge of our vision, the leadership development programme, and a role of an ambassador, and all of that information is on our website. The questions for these, just to break down those, hopefully you'll have those in front of you. So there's a bit of a blurb above it about what the programme is and what we're sort of expecting of you. So we talk about the impact that you hope to have on your pupils and how you will do that. why does the intensive and challenging nature of the Teach First Leadership Development Programme appeal to you? Because obviously we want people that are committed to addressing educational inequality, and as you've heard from our panel, that's not easy. So just thinking about your motivations for applying, and finally, an active network of committed Teach First ambassadors is essential to achieve our vision. So how would you hope to contribute this? So again, that's the knowledge of the role of an ambassador. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you fully understand the Teach First vision and the leadership development programme, and really show that knowledge in your answers. So make sure that you're pulling parts of bits that you've read, because if you don't tell us, we don't know that you know. And also that you've carefully considered your motivation for applying and are confident that you want to make the 2-year commitment to the leadership development programme. That's really important because we want to make sure that we have teachers going into classrooms and making an impact and inspiring the next generation. So really think about actually what you're looking for and why you're applying for the leadership development programme, so that you've got that already structured in your answer. Okay, so moving forward, we talk a little bit about the STAR technique. So this is a way of formatting your answers to make sure you feel really, really confident in everything that you're saying in your answer. So you can see the different parts: it's situation, task, action, result. This is built into some of our questions, so you may think, oh, I don't really need to think about that. It's a good thing to have in the back of your mind, especially the action part, which makes up about 70% of your answer. So really think about the actions that you took and the skills that you developed. Okay. So moving forward, the second part 1 of the application form is problem solving. So really think about your ability to overcome problems and give a clear description of the situation and the steps that you personally took to solve the problem. That's what we're looking for. So think about the example that best demonstrates your problem-solving ability, and remember you're only giving one example of this, and it's broken down into different sections. This is a section that people find difficult because they're natural problem solvers. So really, really think about the steps that you took to come up with that approach and how you did that. Okay, so moving on to part 2 of the application form, there's humility, respect, and empathy. This is very important. We serve diverse communities and we work with lots and lots of different people, colleagues, Teach First network, your pupils, your parents, the children's parents, so lots and lots of people. So we really want to make sure that you are committed to the needs of others and that you took steps to make sure that their needs were met. So clearly detail the example and ensure you provide a full explanation of how you ensure the needs of others were met. Okay, moving forward, the last competency on the application form is leadership. Obviously, it's a leadership development programme. It's not any more important than the other competencies, but it's important that you're showing high levels of personal responsibility or responsibility for others, positive results owing to those good leadership skills, and an understanding of what makes a good leader and a clear demonstration of these skills. So we really want to know, what tasks you personally undertook, and in one of the questions you want to relate the skills to the role of a Teach First teacher. So we're looking for 2 examples of leadership, so make sure that you are thinking about those different types of leadership skills. So make sure you read those really carefully. Okay, so moving forward to the do's and don'ts, I'm not going to read those out as you're perfectly capable of reading those, but just really think about how you can make an effective application form. Just a few sort of general do's and don'ts. Obviously, be honest. Integrity is one of our values, so be really honest on the application form. You don't have huge word counts. In the first section, it's 100 words. In the second section, it's 150. So make sure that you are really thinking about how the wording you're using, and can you cut anything out to really show those actions and those skills that you have. With the examples that you want to use, you can use things from the last 2 to 3 years, ideally. That's what the screeners want to see. For any career changes or professionals that have been out of university for a little while, you can go further back than that. Just make sure that you're really demonstrating those skills to a high level. Okay. And finally, the top tips. So yes, practice in Word first. Copy and paste the question into a Word document or something similar. It's really important because the application times you out, which is a bit frustrating. Also, it's really great for the assessment centre, because if you are successful and invited to the assessment centre, the assessors won't know that you've, the assessors won't have seen your application form, so you can use the same ones for those particular competencies if you choose to. Definitely get somebody to read over your application form. Your career service will read over that for you if you'd like. They usually extend that to alumni as well, so please feel free to use those. But also thinking about people in your own network and how they can best support you. Yeah, make sure your form is well structured, and we sort of talked about that with the STAR format. And yes, make sure you keep a final copy of the application form as well. So you want to make sure that you have read through, and I appreciate this is quite quick, so don't worry, there are people to support you with this, and we will be emailing this out with the webinar, after the webinar as well. So what to do next? If you've already opened an application, contact your graduate recruitment officer, or they'll have been in contact with you. If you get to open an application form, you can click the link in the chat box and register your details, and a graduate recruitment officer will contact you. As we mentioned, there's lots and lots of information on our website, so please feel free to contact them and get your questions answered and get support with your application form. Okay, so we'll pass back to Oli. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Amy. And as she mentioned, the support really doesn't end there. So if you've opened an application already, then someone from our graduate recruitment team is going to be in touch with you, see if you've got any questions, and also give you some really personalised and tailored support to mean that your application you submit is the best reflection of you and articulates your strengths in the best possible way. If you haven't opened an application yet, then we definitely want to have a conversation with you. So what you can do is, as Amy mentioned, on the chat bar to the side of the screen, there's a link you can click, and you can give us your information, and we can make sure that one of our graduate recruitment team will be in touch with you. They will call you or arrange a time to speak and go through any questions you might possibly have, potentially any specific eligibility questions or anything at all like that. There's also a link to the FAQ inbox. So if you've got any questions, then we have an email address you can contact us on. That link, the link to be contacted, and our website as well, is all going to be sent out in an email after this webinar as well. So check your inboxes for that. And that's it. That's it for the Apply First webinar. So thank you very much for joining us, whether it's live or whether you're joining us through YouTube afterwards. I hope you found it useful. I hope it's given you a much better idea about why Teach First exists and what you can be doing to get involved, and also making sure that you're really successful when you do finally hit that apply button. So thank you very much.